Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another narrated Pokemon Wi-Fi battle. Today's battle is a UU match that I had the other day against a user by the name of Ellis26, and it turned out to be a pretty fun and interesting battle. The team I am using is a relatively new team that I've been experimenting with, but have absolutely enjoyed every single minute I've used it. It works extremely well, and there are a ton of things that it can do to harass the opponent, which is why I have a lot of fun using it. Also, Arcanine and Mew work extremely well as a defensive pair together, so that is pretty much the bulk of how I handle a lot of the Pokemon on my opponent's teams the majority of the time, which is really nice. But as you can see from the team preview, I have 3 Pokemon in common with my opponent, though the Mew set that he is running and the Swampert set that he is running is very different from mine. So we'll see how that plays out in the course of the battle. But let's just jump into it right now. So as you could tell from before, we both decided to lead off with our Mews. I decided to go for a Stealth Rock in the first turn, where my opponent reveals to me that he has X's around his Mew, which is very uncommon but makes complete sense, and I actually think that's really cool that he did that. But expecting him to be basically a physical attacker here, I just U-turn out of here. I get a crit on the U-turn, but that really doesn't matter. And I go out into my Arcanine to get off and Intimidate on it, and hopefully be able to wall pretty much any attack it wants to go for. But here, as you can see, he actually shows me Scald, so this is some kind of odd mixed Mew that, as you'll see in a moment, also packs the Lumberry so that if you try to status it, it will synchronize a status over to you, but won't actually take the status itself because the Lumberry will heal it, which I thought was very cool. I think I've seen that before, maybe once or twice, but it's still pretty uncommon to me, so I was actually very surprised when that happened, but very glad that I burned it with Arcanine instead of my Mew, because obviously I cannot be burned being a fire type. But as you can see from right here, the Scalds aren't doing too much damage, so I'm actually pretty safe in just staying in here with Arcanine. Again, he shows me Stone Edge, which I was just like, what? Again, this is just a very odd Mew, but honestly, using a Pokemon that can learn every single TM in the game gives you the liberty to use whatever the hell you want, and your opponent should just be aware of that fact regardless. But anyways, I think he just wanted to show me his last move there, which was Heat Wave. There was really no reason to go for it, but I figured he just thought he was going to die, so I just went for it. But here he does switch out into his Swampert. Now I do pack the Hidden Power Grass on this Arcanine, but I decided to switch out into Mew just to be safe here, and maybe get a burn on whatever wants to come in. Now I obviously haven't shown Will-O-Wisp to my opponent yet, but I assumed that he wouldn't want to switch out into Victini here, because that is the one thing on his team that would resist it. So I do get a nice burn off on this Mismagius, which is really nice, and rather than U-turning out of here because Mismagius is going to be faster than my Mew, I do pull the switch right out into my Togekiss, to hopefully basically sponge whatever hits it wants to go for and potentially just kill it with air slashes. Here though, I go for Roost on this turn, basically checking if my opponent has the Thunderbolt. He actually goes for Taunt here though. I don't know if you predicted that, because obviously I can't go for Thunder Wave because he's burned. So that was just really unfortunate for me, because now I can't recover up any health. And also, even though I went to Roost to begin with to see if he had Thunderbolt, now he actually does have Thunderbolt and I cannot Roost it off. And as you can see, it's really not doing too much damage. It's doing maybe like 40%, so this is going to be a clean 3-hit KO. But I do miss my Air Slash right there, and then on the following turn my opponent does go for Thunderbolt, gets the Paralysis, and then I get the full Paralyzation here. So rather than waste Togekiss here, because I know I could maybe use it later, I'm not really sure what it could do, but maybe I could get like a Paralysis off on something, because I do pack the Thunder Wave. I do switch out here into my Raikou to resist the hit, though my opponent unfortunately does get a crit right here, but I guess that kind of makes up for the Mew crit before. But either way, it doesn't really matter that much, because this is a sub-Calm-Minding Raikou, so I do have leftovers, and I'm able to heal a lot of the damage off in the coming turns. But anyways, I'm still not convinced Thunderbolt is going to kill the Mismagius, so I do go for Sub here. I was also kind of fearing Destiny Bond, but he unfortunately switches out into Swampert, which is a good play for him, because now, as you can see, my Hidden Power Ices are not doing that much damage. But here he shows to me that he does not have leftovers on his Swampert, so I'm kind of thinking that he is banded. And since my Mew is pretty bulky in general, I figured that might have just been like regular banded Mew damage. But here I just figured the Will-O-Wisp was so obvious that I should just go for Psychic. But my opponent actually did not even think of that, I guess, or just assumed that because he has Swords Dance on this Weavile, which you'll see in the next turn, it didn't even matter if I burned him or not. I was actually expecting to die there from Pursuit, but luckily my opponent did not pack it. but I do switch out into my Arcanine, get an Intimidated off on this Weavile, so instead of being at +2 from the Swords Dance, it is now +1, and he switches out as I go for the Will-O-Wisp into his Victini, which is a move I was expecting to happen way earlier in the match. Now here, I'm actually not even sure what this Victini could do to Arcanine, because again, I'm just a bulky Arcanine to take hits, but unfortunately for me, he does get a critical hit with a Zen Headbutt, which takes out my Arcanine, but I'm just going to have to manage without it. I do go into Mew now, expecting this Victini to be Scarfed, so I just U-turn out of there, and I go back into my Raikou to deal with this Togekiss. Now, even though I know the switch to Swampert is so obvious here, going for Hidden Power Ice and then getting Thunder Waved by Togekiss is not something I want to happen. So I have to go for Thunderbolt even though I know my opponent is going to switch out. He put me in a position where I had to attack and I really couldn't do anything about it. But here I do make the switch out into my Togekiss as Death Fodder. I do see that he goes for Earthquake, so even though I was thinking he was banded, I was like, yes, now I can roost off damage or Thunderwave something, but it actually turns out that he doesn't actually have the choice band, and he switches up moves here. Sorry, I blanked for a second. But here I go into my Swampert. My Swampert is a fully max attack physical Swampert, so I know I can handle his. Obviously, I'm doing more damage than he is, and then I'm able to Earthquake and then go for the Waterfall on the following turn, which I know will kill and also potentially hurt something really badly that comes in after it, which just so happens to be the Swismagius. Obviously, it is Levitate, so it wouldn't have been hit by the Earthquake. So that was a good move, but I kind of predicted it there. And then here, I'm expecting to just attack here. I did not expect my opponent to go for Aura Sphere. I guess he assumed that I was going to switch or something, maybe out into my Raikou, but I just go for Ice Punch. Obviously, Raikou would have resisted the Air Slash, but I just wanted to kill that thing because it was being really annoying. But here, I do switch out into my Mew here, expecting the Zen Headbutt again. But luckily for me, my opponent actually goes for Focus Blast, showing me that it is some kind of mixed Victini, which again works very well because of how powerful V-Create just is in itself, and it doesn't get really a good fighting move outside of Focus Blast anyway, and with Victory Star, obviously I have better accuracy with it. But here, I'm able to actually just burn whatever I want to. I know he has to switch out, so I know going for Will-O-Wisp is the best move possible in this scenario. And then I go out into my Heracross here, which is Scarfed. He goes into his Victini though, but because I know he is faster than me, and I know he probably wants to go for V-Create here, I switch out into my Mew to be Death Fodder here. Now that my opponent now gets the minus defense, minus special defense, and minus speed drop, I know that my Scarfed Heracross is now going to be faster than his Scarfed Victini, if that is what it is. That's what I'm assuming, so I'm able to just go for close combat here. It'll take it out even though it's resisted, possibly because of the minus defense drop, but I also get a crit there, which is kind of cool. Kind of think that was useless, but all he has left is this Weavile, and I'm pretty sure an Ice Shard will not kill me even though I'm -1 defense. Turns out he doesn't even have it, and I'm just able to close combat this Weavile for the KO and the victory, which worked out really well. As you can see, this team is so fun to use, from my perspective at least. It has a lot to deal with common threats in UU, and bulky Arcanine is just the best thing ever. Seriously, go use one if you have never used one before, because it is possibly one of the best walls I have ever used in my life. It works so well, and it can do so many different things. It handles Victini, handles Darmanitan, handles Heracross. It basically is your go-to guy in battle if you're using one to take physical attackers. But anyways, that is it for this match. So as always, take care, goodbye. I will see you next time, and I hope you all enjoyed.